Joining us on the line, the creator of Photo Finish Live, Ian Cummings. Ian, let's just start with that. I mean, I know what Photo Finish Live is because I work with Ryan, and he will not stop talking about this awesome digital horse racing game. But why don't you tell the good people who have maybe missed out on the craze here? What is Photo Finish Live?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, Photo Finish Live is a video game. It is a horse racing game where players are, owning their horses and they're racing against each other. That's sort of the top line. If you've ever dreamed of being a horse owner in real life but didn't really know where to start, where do you find one? How do you take care of an animal? This is maybe the entry point into that, but then it goes way deeper. So players are breeding with each other, which is weird, and they're racing against each other. There's a lot of that, and then there's real money involved.
Those guys who will get penetration.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off,
John.
John knows all about it.
Shout out to Madden.
There probably is a horse named John. Madden,
if
too.
not, Ryan, you need to get one.
Right.
Well, thank you for making this game. One, because if my wife ever brings up this fantasy of owning a horse, I can just go, sure, we can own a horse, a digital horse, and my wife also big animal person. So if you're worried about, oh, hey, they're not treating these horses well, the digital thing you don't have to worry about at all. I got to know, or I would love to hear your take. Why horse racing? Like, what about it for you sparked an interest, or you thought there was a place in the market for it? Like, what inspired you to create Photo Finish Live?
Yeah, so I mean, this goes back nearly 10 years. We've been making horse racing games since 2014, and that came from really my job for a decade prior to that was working on Madden football, and I've been a sports gamer my whole life. I've been a sports bettor and gambler my whole life as well. So after I kind of wrapped up my time on Madden, I still love sports games, and I thought, at that point, I'd been in the industry a long time, 13, 14 years I've been in the game industry, and thought I could make my own game. You just had all that bravado at that point. I could do whatever I want now. And I honestly went to a website, most popular sports in the world by fans, and then I start looking down the list. Like, I'm going to make a game. Let's see. Should I make soccer? That's number one. No, that's going to be too hard. Should I make cricket? No, I don't even know how that works. You kind of kick down. Football? No, I've done that. I get to tennis, maybe golf, maybe horse racing. And I was like, like, I go to my phone. Is there anything good in horse racing? Is there any good horse racing games? And I couldn't find any. It was just like literally nothing. And so that was it. That was the start, was business first. It was audience first rather than passion for the sport. I knew nothing about horse racing, barely. I had been to one race at Keeneland when I was in college my whole life. But I thought, well, this is a cool sport though. Even though I'm not into it, it started to scratch the itch of well, I love gambling and I love, I love the competition part.
Language.
Yeah. It checks a lot of boxes,
No,
yeah, it did.
Watching a horse run that you own in a game, also adding on the real financial stakes is truly a rush. I mean, you talk about Madden, and we got to go back to your Madden days there a little bit. And I'm sure there was a lot of side bets in dorm rooms and high school. Can
I even go back further before we go to Madden? Because you did attend the University of Tennessee, and you happened to show up on campus the year they go on, and it was first year of the BCS too. So we don't have Colby here to get a take on the how BCS ruined college football, but this was the first year of that, and this was the year that Tennessee, a starved alumni base, and often irrationally confident, wins the national championship.
Irrationally confident.
We heard so much
Peyton Manning,
Well, of course, and we heard so much about them taking the goalpost down to the river. This year when they had a big win, what was the craziest thing that you guys did? I mean, a freshman in college, I could only imagine. You win the national championship. What was that next week like?
Oh, it was crazy. Now I do remember having strep that week because it sucked after it was over. But I definitely remember my freshman year there. I had never been to a college football game, And the first ones I'm going to are at UT. It's 108,000 people. They're just absolutely insane. All of us bringing in a handle bottle of Jack Daniels throughout. It's just absolutely absurd. Standing room only everywhere. So loud. And that first year. I remember waiting in line for almost a day to get Florida tickets. We hadn't beaten Florida in forever, and that was my big memory. Is that game? I think we had a couple of cupcake games before we played Florida. We played Florida at home. We hadn't beaten them forever. We ended up beating them. And I think I jumped down like an actual club level section, like just fearless, like to go storm the field, picking up grass chunks to tell your friends. It was just like the most unbelievable. So the unfortunate part was that it's all downhill since like that national championship year, and to think like, wow, UT's got it made, and then like within no time, just like bottom feeder, barely losing to Vandy. It's been pretty rough.
I was going to say the parallels too, Sean, as someone I showed up to Virginia Tech a year after Vic took them to the national championship. Same story for me, but I had to ask you the one. So is the SEC championship bigger that year, or is the national championship bigger?
Yeah, I think the SEC championship was. I mean, I do think great. that national championship game with Florida State, it was just sort of like, it was so new and different to have it like that. And I think it was Peter Warwick was like, and he was like, he had been accused of shoplifting or something. There was all these stories around that almost, it was like, well, we're just going to take this, but really we'd already beaten Florida. That was the main, like beating UF and beating Bama. That was really all that mattered.
Yeah, exactly. Winning at Georgia.
It just shows you the SEC mentality. Like the rest of you don't matter.
SEC.
we got it done here.
So I mean,
exactly. So sorry, Madden.
No, Matt. How do you get in on Madden? Because I imagine playing Madden or whatever year you hopped in there. I would imagine as someone working in games, that's got to be like a dream gig, working for EA, working on the Madden franchise. How do you get in and kind of what was your like day to day working on the Madden game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was there a long time, but the getting in my foot in the door was really randomly lucky, and I'm still grateful for the chance. Now, I think when I think back, like I probably would have found a way into the game industry. I was so obsessed with video games, but when I started at UT as a freshman, I enrolled in computer science. I thought, well, you've got to learn computer science to make video games. And within the first class, I was like, this sucks. This is horrible. Like I hated it. I flunked out. It was just like, okay, maybe I should be a business major. I just changed entirely because it was so hard. They would teach programming on an overhead projector. I mean, she would literally be writing code with her hand. And then you'd have it was so early, I guess, when you think about it, compared to like nowadays where you can have you can watch YouTube videos and learn it all. But so it just so happened I'd been playing, obviously in my dorm room with my buddies. We played Tiger Woods nearly every day. We were shooting.
Oh, that was the game back in the day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We were shooting 59s, that would basically just be so we played that all the time. And then we played college football all the time as well. And I had grown up playing Madden was my game as a kid, Madden and NHL. So anyway, always EA Sports games. And so it just so happened they roll through town. EA Sports comes into town. They went to about 10, maybe 15 schools on a tour to recruit game testers. So they'd show up in a van with like 8 big CRT TVs and 8 PlayStations, and they would hold a tournament. Whoever won would then go to an SEC tournament, and then they would have a national championship kind of a thing. That was their little recruiting trip in the year 2000. And so it just so happens they came through town, and one of my buddies, this guy Ben, was the best at college football. I mean, like, I thought, of course, I was a real pro gamer at that time, but like he knew all the like cheats. I mean, he was just, you hated playing him. You would never play him because he would sack you when you snapped it. You would fumble every time you humble. He was like all cheats. Like, man, Ben's garbage. Like the dude just cheats. You act like, and then of course he gets in this tournament and he just like hangs 80 points on everyone. And so he wins right away. And so I think he goes to the SEC championship. He might have won that too, or maybe came second or something. And at the end of that,
I love the SEC is just so about the SEC. It's like Well, we got to have an SEC championship of video games.
Yeah, video games, yeah, right.
We can't do like a national thing. We need the SEC.
We got to go beat Florida, you know, in the video game tournament.
We got to go to those nerds at Mississippi State and dominate them on the digital gridiron. I just love that they had their own SEC Madden tournament.
Wise. It means more.
So and probably didn't allow Vandy or Kentucky to play. You know.
Yeah, sorry, not eligible. Well, there were probably some recruiting violations with some of these schools, but they being the SEC, we didn't hear about those.
No.
Your buddy goes to the college football SEC championship, and
the college one he wrecks them. I think he did first or second. He did really well, and so their EA Sports reps are there. And they're like, would you like to have a job? Come test NCAA 2000. Come down and test the game. And he's like, yeah, can my buddies come too? And they're like, whatever, you know, they don't care. And so he gets a phone number from, you know, the rep, the QA director here in Orlando. Says, well, I've got, two friends that want to join. And he was thinking of me and then another one of his friends, Alex. And because we just played games together all the time. And so I called this guy trying to get an interview from, this tournament was in like January. So January, February, March, April, May. I'm calling this guy like once a week to try and get an interview because I'm like, this is the job I want. I want to come test.
Yeah.
And he just ghosts me the whole time, just never just totally clowns me. And so it comes to like, May and Ben is driving down and I'm like, dude, I'm going to follow you down there. Let's go, and I was like, at worst case, I told my mom too, I'm like, worst case, if they just say no, I'll just be a bartender or something. I'll live in Florida for the summer and I don't know, I'll figure it out. I was a sophomore.
Love that.
Yeah. So I show up at the door. Can I be a tester? And they're like, yeah, whatever, just sit over there. And I'm like, yes, did it, and they could just care less. They're like, it'll be $6 an hour, and you work.
You're gonna pay me? You're gonna pay me to play college football? All right.
Yeah, I was like, I worked 3 to midnight. That was my shift, which was awesome. Just slept in.
I mean,
have a beer.
Takes you back to those college days of like. If you could tell me you work 9 hours, quote unquote, just playing video games, and then, especially at that age, you get out at midnight, maybe you hit the bar, you're hanging out in the apartment, whatever.
Grandma's Boy is literally a whole movie based on this premise.
Yeah. I forgot about Grandma's Boy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream right there.
So living the dream, testing the games.
Yeah, so I start testing, long story short, I don't know how long, I could talk for 2 hours about this, but we basically... I start testing and the moment I did it, it was like, this is it. This is what I want to be. This is the job. So I worked that whole summer as a tester, dropped out of college, never left EA. And basically was like, I worked my way up from, game tester to assistant producer to creative director over, the course of 10 years. And I mean, it was just a real dream at the beginning. It sort of like, once I got into the top tier part of that career, it became a real drag. It was a lot of meetings and PowerPoints, and Madden was a big team. It became no longer this like what I had done with my boys, and we're just playing the game, and we're every year just brainstorming what are the cool things we're gonna do, and what are the new features? Like all that went away as you get higher and higher up the chain. Yeah. And so then that was really it. I just got so burned out on this. Like I would have days where I couldn't even go to the bathroom. I'd just be in meetings back to back, and I'm like, this is just, what in the hell happened here? How did I end up at like an insurance company?
You're speaking Sean's language right now. In terms of corporate bureaucracy.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I feel like I kind of went similar path where like TV writing, I did I was working on a bunch of clip shows, and it's like, wait, you're gonna pay me to write jokes for these shows, and then years and years down the line, you're like, all right, I kind of want to do my own thing, and that's the timing worked out that our company was picking up steam, and so I could kind of transition to that. And I imagine, from what you're describing, kind of a similar thing where, hey, I feel like I've kind of did everything I wanted to do. Now I'm just like managing the people who are actually getting to come up with the games, but like that's what I want to do.
And fuck PowerPoints also, right?
PowerPoints.
Yeah, enough of that. Yeah, right.
Zoom,
Zoom meetings. Yeah, it was prior to Zoom, but yeah, there was a lot of meetings where I would spend weeks on this PowerPoint deck, just like getting it dialed in. I'd rehearse it, had my animations dialed in, and I'd get in there and And then like, I remember one where the head of marketing guys just the entire time is just like on his BlackBerry, just like, and I finished, and I swear to God, I finished the deck, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, could you run through that again? I was just like,
oh, wow.
And luckily someone else was in there and was just like, go to hell. No, he's not doing it again. But I was just like, why did you
ever get to meet Madden? Did he ever like pop in for, oh, okay. What was that like?
I did. Oh, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So he came by the studio a couple times, and both times I wasn't there. So that was really bummed about that. He actually came through a few times with the cruiser, and like people got to get on the damn bus, And so I was bummed. I was really bummed that I missed those. He did those both of the times. He did them during like Christmas break, and I was out of town. But so then right after he retired, DirecTV and Outback and all these people set up this huge warehouse in Pleasanton, in California, where he's from, right near his house. That was like his watch party hangout for NFL Sundays.
Oh,
awesome. And so they invited us out there for the opening week of 2009 season, if I remember right.
Cool.
And so he just retired. We roll in, and there's just Outback Steakhouse shit everywhere. And it's just like you wouldn't believe the amount of like, or is it blooming onions or whatever? Those are just everywhere, And so he's just sitting in this big chair, sitting back, and there's 10 65-inch screens, and then one big 105-inch projector screen, and all these chairs around it. And they give us these set of headphones, and the headphones have a little clicker, and you can choose which number, like TV2, TV4. Every game is on every channel. And then there's a guy in the corner who's just sitting at this little desk, and John would just shout at him to change the channel to the big one. And
that's great.
And that guy, his whole job was just like, he's just sitting there waiting, like
waiting for Madden to yell at him to change the channel.
I gotta be honest, Sean. As someone who has architected an awesome wall of TVs in our office, I now have an aspirational vision. I think this is like the scene in The Matrix when you meet the architect and he's in this circular room. I feel like I need to. This is a place that's only spoken of in the myths.
We got 8 TVs on the wall, but I mean,
I don't have someone in the corner to yell at.
We need it. We need to find one of those.
To get the primary. You need the big one. And so at some point at halftime or something, that was my first year as creative director. I'd of course been working on the game forever, but I'd never met him. And so they bring me over. Hey, this is Ian. He's now in charge, and I mean, he's huge. He's a massive man. His hand is a catcher's glove, when he shakes your hand. And he's like, the referees are in the wrong position. Just like that was what he led with.
Yeah, that's great. I mean,
I was like, yes, sir.
That's a great Madden story, man.
Just immediately, awesome. Like the back judge needs to be at least 20 yards behind the.
That's
like,
amazing.
All right, I'm on it, sir. Coach. I keep calling coach. But he was obviously like the majority of that day. He sat next to our playbooks guy, Anthony, and they talked. I mean, just nonstop about play, like the passion and the attention to detail that he had to the game. It was so exciting. Like, yes, he was terrifying. He's kind of gruff and all this type of stuff, but like he's such an amazing man, that he, like, after all these years, he's well retired, and he's sitting there just like, you see, there's a yard in on the shotgun. He's got this, just every little detail. And of course the playbook guy just like ate it up. I think it was a highlight of his life for sure.
Yeah, that must have been great. And
tell me again about the time you sat with John Madden for 6 hours and talked about the triple option.
No, and it's all, and by you hear that he was very tuned in. Like, he didn't have to. He could have signed his name off years ago, but he wanted the product to be good because he was passionate about. Hey, we want this realistic football game. We want to put. If I'm going to put my name on it, I want it to be good. I want it to be accurate.
Well, and over time, go ahead. Yeah.
No, continue.
I was just going to say, over time, as he got older and older, like, he obviously didn't work on it as much, but he would still check it out. He would still look at it. He would still notice the referees being wrong. He would still record commentary throughout the years. And some of those, I wish I had some of those excerpts. If we could find people at EA, there's so many lines of him making fun of the designers and on the mic, because they had written a line for him that he's just like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. I would never read this. Who wrote this? You know, and then we're all clowning the guy like, you didn't even know what a tight end was, stupid. You know, like
the Madden outtakes. That is a gem somewhere. If anyone from EA ever comes across,
they were so good. They were so good. He had the dirtiest mouth.
Documentary.
Yeah, I bet.
These
motherfuckers.
Well, he was the last. He was the last locker room with beer and cigarettes. So you could see where it comes from. I do have a Madden question for you, because everyone, Sean will remember this because we were roommates back in this time.
Yes.
But Madden 2004, Michael Vick was unstoppable. It allowed me to be one of the greatest Madden players on the planet. You don't know this. Our audience already knows this, but. In 2005, I believe you guys released a feature called the hit stick, which essentially rendered Michael Vick useless. Was I individually targeted, and was this a clear feature to take Michael Vick out of the game?
We knew who you were, and we thought enough is enough, you know. But no, it obviously was. A lot of the Madden 05 design was specifically against Vick, And what was wild is, like, I remember this so clearly. I still have notebooks about this, and there's actually a documentary coming out, I think, later this year about some of this era, because I provided all my notes and all these things to these people putting it on. But there was that was the first year that we signed a deal with the coaches union, so the NFLCA. And so we had access as part of that to put their names in the game. That was the main reason we did it, so that you could see head coach such and such, you know, is on your team, and we could model them and stuff. But part of that is we would get 5 meetings a year with any coach we wanted. Basically, we would just, as long as we could get their schedule, where we could go and pick their brains. And so what we did that year is we picked 4 defenses that had gone against Vick, and we're asking them, like, what the hell do we do? Like, what do we do? Like, we don't we can't change his ratings. We can't make him slower. Like, what do you do? And it was so crazy because all of them were like, we're the same way, man. We have no idea.
We don't know.
I don't know. And so that was a lot of that year was like, okay, well, here's what QB spies are. Here's some of the packages we run. We got to get faster linebackers, and we run double spies and both flats, and, you know, all these things that were like, you never had seen before. No one had ever had to worry about, where they're like, so we built a lot of defenses around it. And then there was a lot more that we did, I think, around, the hit stick. The QBs would fumble a lot more. Vick would get hurt a lot more because I think he got hurt that year. You remember, like, so there was a lot more that we did to, like, well, he's still great, but this is it should be a little riskier than it was in the game prior, where there was literally no reason why you wouldn't
stop him. He was just dominating.
It was like Vick on a rollout, Dante Culpepper on the rollout to Randy Moss It allowed like a 9-year-old girl to beat me in one of the Madden Challenge tournaments. Anyway, we can move. That concludes me talking about my glory years.
So you decide to make the jump, do your own thing, get photo finish live, to make a horse racing game. When did you launch photo finish, and take us through where it's grown from when you first got it going?
Yeah, I mean, it started as a mobile game. That was the sort of acumen I had built, was building games in Unity and building them on the App Store. And so I'd gotten pretty good at that, I thought. And so that first version of Photo Finish in 2014, I launched in Australia just by myself, nights and weekends, sort of got it working to see if it would be worth anything. And before I knew it, it was a success. Like, it was an unexpected success. It started making, quite a bit of money, really good amount of downloads just in Australia. And I'm like, well, geez, holy crap. Like, I can do this for real. Like, I can make a studio now. And so I formed a studio off of the back of that, and always were, fiercely indie, always had like 3 to 4 to 5 employees, just very tight group of guys that I had worked with at EA, and just had a lot of fun doing that. And we made 2 mobile horse racing games. Both were pretty successful, paid the bills, but not like, multimillionaire status or anything. Just like, great. Running our own empire was, even though it was small, was so much more fun than what we had done at EA, right? Like the sort of corporate game dev that it had come to. So we really were enjoying that. And around 2021 is when I saw NBA Top Shot start to take off. And I really started to think there's legs in this crypto Web3 angle with real money. And when you think back to our horse racing games at that point on mobile, I mean, yeah, they were making lots of money off of the players, but not a lot. I mean, like, relatively speaking, you could get $100 off of somebody or $200 off of someone. And at the same time, all the users are requesting the same thing. I wish I could bet on my horse. Yeah. I wish I could play for money. I want to play for stakes. I mean, because that's the sport. Like, that's what it's for. I want trifectas. I want pick sixes. I want the whole thing. And so
it's funny, and not to break in, but like Sean and I have been doing this for so long, we often get approached with the idea of like a gamified casino or a gamified sports book. And it's like, yeah, but the whole point is the gambling. You can't make fake gambling and expect people to really go all the way in.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because there are slots games on mobile that make lots of money. And I still am like, who is playing this? Like, why on earth? Like poker, I somewhat understand a free poker game because like maybe you just feel like you're getting better. You just weren't ready to play for stakes and it's skill based, but like slots, like what? What in the world? Yeah. But some people, I mean, they play it and like, again, playing slots game for free for entertainment. Okay. But like, why on earth would you put money into a slot machine with literally zero chance of return? I don't understand. Yeah. But people do it. So there's an entertainment value there that I think the games provide that maybe you don't have to have real money. But we started to, like, in 2021, brainstorm out and think through what does a game look like that is real money based, massively multiplayer in essence, where the whole ecosystem of the game is controlled by the players. And, following the ethos of crypto and somewhat decentralized manner, if you can, and so we started really just brainstorming, prototyping, building ideas as our third game. The other two mobile games they hadn't like reached the end, but they were, on the way down. And so we were looking, well, what are we going to do next? And a lot of team members, we weren't sure, do we really want to do another horse racing game? We've already done two, but it was like, well, we've already got all the stuff. Like, why don't we try it? Why don't we try a real money one? And so I spent a ton of money on attorneys first before we did anything, getting a state by state legal review of like, where could we actually release this thing and what part can we do? What part can't we do? And so around September 2021 is when we sort of announced it. And January 2021, 2022, we had raised like a $3.5 million venture round. Everyone was super excited. And then we launched the beta in June of that year. And then we've just been off and running. So we were in beta for about a year. So 2023, we landed the Kentucky Derby license and that multi-year partnership. And then we went live right with the Derby last year, 2023. And so it's been out for just about a year and a month. And it's been crazy, man. I mean, I never would have expected like some of these numbers, some of the players that have made north of seven figures now, some of the players.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think also just the traditional horse, like attacking it from the idea that we're going to partner with the traditional horse business. We're going to make this seem like a feasible thing. And without getting into the depths of how the game works, but just offering the ability to kind of treat it like real. I mean, like you said, between the gambling and then like the ownership, the staking, like it does seem like real. And I kind of want like direct question, like, are you seeing a lot of traditional horse stables dipping the toe in and standing up digital stables or getting in for just the staking maybe?
There's a few. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a couple that own real life horses that came in. One of the earliest supporters we have were the owners of Hot Rod Charlie. Those young guys, boat racing. So Hot Rod Charlie was just sort of their college purchase. They just graduated. It was like, hey, let's buy a horse together and we'll follow it. And it ends up being a freaking Derby horse,
Yeah.
Lucky
Nice
bastards. Yeah. And just so you know, I bought in with them on their follow-up horse and it got claimed for like $5,000 in dog shit. Nothing.
Just miss. I
mean, most of the time they are donkeys, unfortunately.
Yeah. So anyway, they don't have a secret formula, unfortunately, because I paid that one. But regardless, I think what you see the majority of the player base, I would say at least 60% are much more into the daily fantasy, poker, sports betting mindset, which is surprising. I did think it would be maybe more heavily skewed into horse racing fans. that have thought, oh man, I love racing and I always wanted to own a horse, but I live in a location where I can't, or whatever. But it's been shocking that it's like the strategy game that all the DFS hardcore players love and the poker players love. So that's been great to find that we're not just a niche game for horse racing fans. Like a lot of the people that are in our community have no idea how, like I went to the Derby and met a lot of them, and a lot of them are like, so what's a trifecta again? And I'm just like,
well, tell them to subscribe to our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We can help
I know, I need
we'll sort them out. But it is interesting because there is an element of like the unsolvable aspect of the game that has drawn these people from these solved games like DFS, traditional DFS or poker. And yeah, I think that's kind of the interesting element of the game. I mean, we are a bit into the game, and sometimes with these NFT games or these crypto games, quote unquote, there's benefit to getting in early, and people feel like if they miss it, like, all right, I already missed the wave. But I think one of the interesting things with this game compared to the other horse game, which Sean and I dabbled with a little bit, was the concept, like the best horses don't start. You don't start the game with the best horses. You evolve and have to figure out breeding and all this other stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, like an entry point. This, like, how many stables are there right now? Because I know the Derby deal certainly helped blow it up, but it's still like a relatively small amount of stables.
Yeah, I always say it's early. I mean, I'll always say it's early anyway because you never finish these games. But yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at a few thousand players playing like very religiously. 20,000-ish people have registered to play, but like you're looking at 2,000 to 3,000 that play like on a very regular hardcore basis. So it's not very many. I mean, I think our mobile games had 100,000 daily. You know, like there was huge audiences on those, and so I feel like we have so much more room to go and grow into. And so it is very early in that respect. And it's funny you say that too. It just reminded me of the EA. I think you were even asking some of those EA days. One of the like strongest cultural things of the EA Sports studio was our fantasy league. And I mean, we're talking like 20 plus years of lore and history in the fantasy league at EA Sports, and multiple divisions where if you ended in the bottom four, you get relegated down into the juniors and then the peewees. And so getting up into the top league was a $250 buy-in, and every transaction cost $5. And, the pools would end up getting huge, but that was, again, all that is sort of what Photo Finish is. It's that level of ownership of like, I'm going to check in every single day. Is there a free agent? Is there a race to do? Is there this, it's really that model of game. It's not an arcade game. It's much more of a, fantasy football, but like a dynasty fantasy football league.
It's dynasty fantasy football. If you could gamble on every player in these events in the off season, where you could like, can I challenge my player to sprint against that other player and do so for real money? Yes, please.
Yep,
no, it's I'm jealous Ryan's getting in, but perfect time. Like you said, still time to get in early. Go to signup.photofinish.live. We got a code there for you, SGPN. So signup.photofinish.live. Ian, really appreciate having you on here. Before we let you go, any analog horse picks for the Belmont? Any ponies you like this weekend?
So I haven't been following it too much. I mean, I am going to try and do a little more handicapping later. Of course, I remember a lot of these horses from Derby week, and myself and a few of the other folks there at the Derby plowed into Dornoch. I mean, like just like we were watching races prior to the Derby, like him as a 2-year-old, where he had, I can't remember which, I need to go back and look at the actual race where he actually like got past on the home stretch and then fought back and won. And I think it was against Sierra Leone. And so we were like, well, he's got the heart of a champion. Like this is and he's 18-1, or whatever. It was like, the
worst thing that can happen is being around a bunch of your buddies and someone has that bad idea. And then everyone's like, yeah. Well, next thing you know, you put an irrational amount of money down on a horse.
Yeah. I remember, one of the guys I was with, I think he put $500 on him to win, and I was like, dude, maybe at least throw show in, like something. Like he's 18-1. Like you just hedge a little. It's like, hell no, dude. It's either gonna be a party, champagne tonight or not. So there wasn't. There was no champagne. So anyway, if I'm playing this, I'm typically an exacta box better. That's typically like my MO. And so I've been sort of circling Sierra Leone, and likely will do Mystic Dan and Door Knock as my exacta box. That's sort of probably where I'll end up